Well, hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Quad Elite. And as you guys can tell by the title and thumbnail of this video, we are working on the Ford Freestyle today, and I would say we're doing a pretty little hefty job on it. We are going to be replacing the power steering rack and pinion, as well as the outer tie rod ends, as well as the power steering pressure lines. Essentially, we're kind of replacing most of the power steering components. As you guys remember, if you've watched for a little bit, I replaced the power steering pump several months ago because that went out. So now we're replacing almost the rest of the power steering system. We do have, I would consider, quite a pretty good sized leak on this car. I'm thinking when we replaced the power steering pump, we kind of tugged on the lines a little bit, and I think that either slightly cracked them or loosened one to where I can't tighten it anymore. So it leaks right at the power steering rack. Without further ado, we're gonna get this car jacked up in the air, take the front tires off, and assess what we're gonna do. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so we are on the driver's side. I did take off the wheel on the passenger side as well because we're gonna need to get to both sides. As you can tell, that is our power steering puddle just from overnight. So it's only been, I'd say maybe 10, 12 hours it's been parked here. That's a lot of fluid. Where it's leaking from is, I will zoom in here. This, you will see there's some orange sort of substance there. I tried to put some RTV sealant on there to see if that'll solve our leak issue. It obviously did not. But you can see you got your power steering line on the bottom and the top. I believe the leak is coming from the top one. I could be wrong. We are going to be replacing the rack and pinion, which is what you see here with your tie rod and everything. And then we're also replacing the two lines. So the two main supply lines, high pressure lines, we're going to be replacing those as well with new seals and everything. And that should hopefully solve our issue. So first things first, we are going to start disconnecting our power steering lines. So I'm going to go ahead and get the sockets we need. Before I did any of that, I will show you what we are going to do at the very beginning so we do not forget. So first things first, guys, what you're going to want to do, you're going to want to duct tape your steering wheel in place. You're going to want to make sure it's center in line, just because we are going to be disconnecting the steering column shaft, and when we do that, this wheel will have freedom to turn. So we don't want it to turn, we want it to stay where it's at, so when we put it back, it's just like it was factory. Just duct tape your wheel in place, like you see, it ain't going anywhere. So do not forget that. That's what I'm going to do first. So I already did that, so now we can go ahead and start disconnecting our lines. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so first things first, we're going to loosen up this top nut right here. It is going to be a 10 millimeter. We're going to go ahead and loosen that up, and once we loosen that up, we should be able to pull the power steering line back. Once we do that, we are going to dump quite a bit of power steering fluid, so I have some rags down below to soak it up. So we're going to disconnect this first line, and we'll move on to the next one. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so as you can see, I've got the line disconnected. Of course, it's pouring out fluid, so make sure you have a drain pan or something below you, but we're going to let that drain. Once that gets drained, we're going to go ahead and disconnect our top line, which is going to be right there. We're going to disconnect that, but we're going to let this drain for a little bit. In the meantime, while that's draining, we can go ahead and take our tie rod ends off. We're going to go ahead, get the right wrenches for this, and then I'll show you how to take it off. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so for our tie rod end, you're going to use a 21 millimeter on the bottom nut. You're going to use a 10 millimeter on the stud up top to hold it. You're going to hold the 10 millimeter and loosen the nut with your 21. Once you get that loosened up, your tie rod might be stuck in there, so take a rubber hammer. Do not hit the top of the tie rod if you're planning to reuse it. You can hit the sidewall of the steering knuckle and that'll loosen it up, but mine actually is pretty loose already. So we're just going to go ahead, take this off, we'll let this fall, and then we'll go ahead and take out that second power steering line. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so we are on the passenger side. We just took off our last tie rod. Same thing on the driver's side I showed you before. Now we're going to go ahead and loosen up the two mounts for the power steering rack. There is one here, which you will see there's kind of a groove in the subframe and a bolt sticking out. That is the mounting bolt. You can see on the other side, if I zoom in, you can see the other one right there. Awfully nasty, but I cleaned this one up a little bit because I don't get new ones when I get the new rack. Go ahead and loosen this up. The nut is a 18 millimeter, so go ahead and loosen that up. We'll do the same thing to the other side. And then the last thing we got to do is loosen up our steering shaft, and it's good to take out. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so we got our mounting bolts taken out, and this thing, you will notice, will wiggle. There is one more thing we got to take out, and I'm trying to see if I can shine some light on it, but if you look at that bottom power steering line hose that's on the rack, you will see there's a nut back there. It's a 10 millimeter nut. It holds this sensor on to the power steering rack. So go ahead and loosen that with your 10 mil. Once we get that done, this thing should be free to slide right out. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, as you can tell, we have an empty hole where our power steering rack is. We got it out, got all the lines disconnected. The lines are currently still sitting here, but we are replacing both of them because I'm not quite sure which one was leaking, so we're going to replace both of them. Next step is the bottom return line that goes into your, basically I guess you can call it your radiator, that cools your power steering. That line runs along up here into the radiator. So to see how we are working, we're going to go ahead and take our wheel liner off. There's all these sorts of Phillips head pins all across the top. So we're going to take that out, get that out of the way, and hopefully we can see exactly where it goes into our radiator. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so we got our wheel well cover off, and now as you can see, we can clearly see all the way up to our radiator. So you can see the line running up all the way going into. Now that we got this clear, we're going to go ahead and clear our visibility for the other hose, and we go over to our power steering pump, which is right below our power steering reservoir. You will see this black line here. This is your high pressure line. It comes from your power steering pump, runs back behind this reservoir, goes back behind the engine down into our power steering rack. As you can tell, we really don't have a lot of visibility here. What I'm going to try to do is give us a little bit more visibility by removing our top motor mount brace. You will see there's two bolts. I already took out one. They're going to be 25 millimeter bolts. They're not on there that terribly tight, so you're going to loosen these two up, as well as these two on the other side. And then you'll see your center bolt for your top mount here. It's going to be a 14 millimeter. You're going to loosen that up. We'll loosen this guy up first so we can get our mount out of here. Hopefully that will give us enough visibility to see where that line runs and hopefully get it out. I'll go ahead and remove those 5 bolts and we'll see what we look like. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so we got our top motor mount brace off. We also took the plastic guard that was on the windshield wipers. The windshield wipers, they're held on by 2 bolts, one on each one, 15 millimeter. Go ahead and loosen those, and then you have to pry them off a little bit. But then we got that plastic piece that just slides out. So now we got maximum visibility as we possibly can. And this little ball right here is the power steering line. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's that darker brown one that goes all the way along the back. That's our power steering line. So we got pretty good clearance to that now. Now we're going to go ahead and start taking it off. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so once you get your return line off, you will see I just took it off, but your high pressure line, this nut right here is a 22 millimeter. Your top one, which is this one right here, is going to be an 18 millimeter, and you just turn the 18 millimeter lefty-loosey and you hold on to the 22, and it'll unscrew. Once you get that unscrewed, there will be this mounting bracket here that this line holds on to, screws in right here. This is weigh 8 millimeter. Take that out. Once you take that out, you got the top 2 mounts basically taken off. There are 2 more. Can't really see here, but if you see right here, there's going to be a bracket. If you have a mechanic's mirror, this will help you out and you'll see. But there's going to be another 8 millimeter kind of tucked way back underneath here. You kind of just have to do it with your fingers. Loosen that, you get that out. The last one is a mount up underneath here. Now the last one is going to be way up in the engine block, kind of right where the engine and the transmission meet. I'm shining right on it. I know you can't really see it the greatest, but it is right there. It's an 8 millimeter. I had to put 4 extensions and a swivel to try to get that off. I don't know how I'm going to get it back on, but it is off. Once we get it off, you will have your sensor. We're just going to unhook the wiring. It's just one of those push-pull connectors. Just pull that off. Now your line should be able to come freely out, so we're going to go ahead and do that so we can get our sensor off. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so we got our power steering line out. Now, the one thing we're going to be transferring over are the two mounting brackets as well as our sensor. So we're going to take our sensor off and we're going to take our brackets off and we're going to put it on the new line because the new line does not have the brackets or the sensor. So I'm going to go ahead and put those on real quick and then we should be able to start putting this back in the car. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so got those brackets put on the power steering line. I got the power steering line rooted in. Please take your time with this. This is a delicate line, as well as you got delicate lines back here. You got your AC lines and evap lines. So take your time. I know it can be frustrating, but please take your time. I got it in. I got our brackets screwed on, the one on the back and then the one on the side of the engine. And then your bracket on top of your reservoir, we had to make an extension for it. So as you can see, this is the original. We made an extension just because it doesn't line up kind of like the factory one. If you remember, the factory one had that big old black ball right about here. I don't know what that's for, but the new line didn't have that, so we just made an extension for the bracket. It's pretty tight, it's not going anywhere. Wraps around, got our fitting tied down there. This is going, like you said, 18 millimeter. This is going to be 21, and you're going to go ahead and tighten this to 26 foot-pounds. I didn't get it quite to 26 because it's already squishing down the gasket enough, so I'm not going to sit there and push it. But other than that, the bracket mount, that is 62 inch-pounds, not foot-pounds, inch-pounds. They do give a torque setting for the brackets, but you can't get a torque wrench back there, so just try to hand tighten them. Other than that, this high pressure line is in, and now we are going to go ahead and put in our power steering rack and pinion, so we were able to make the connection. When you do that, I would suggest loading it from the driver's side because you have the steering shaft up top, so load it from the driver's side. So let's go ahead and get it in there and we'll start torquing things down. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so our power steering rack is in. If you guys remember, we took off those two big long mounting bolts. Those are going to go right back in their locations. So this one's located right behind the steering shaft itself, and then the other one on the passenger side is pretty clear to see. The top nut is a 15 millimeter, the bottom nut is a 18 millimeter, and you're going to torque that down to 86 foot-pounds. It's going to be the biggest torque setting we got. So go ahead and torque that down to 86 foot-pounds. Once we get that done, we are able to put our last bracket on the nice shiny power steering line we got here. That's going to tuck in right behind those power steering lines on the rack themselves. You'll see there's a mounting hole, especially on the old one. That's where it mounts. So go ahead and do that, and then we'll be able to make that connection, and then we can start working on the other power steering line. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so we got our line torqued down. As you can tell, nice and shiny in there. Now we're going to move the bottom line. You'll see there's a bracket kind of way back there below our sensor line. It's going to be on the back of the subframe. That's an 8 millimeter bolt. And then if we come up front, in front of our power steering rack, right below your CV axle, you will see another mount. That is a 7 millimeter. And then you'll see another one right in front of the body mount. That is another 7. And then right in front of the body mount, you will see there's another 7. Now, if it helps, I took out the air box, and you can see our mounts right down there, straight down, 1 and 2. Once we get those disconnected, you will see that our line goes into a rubber hose. It's just a hose clamp. Take that off with the hose, like a pair of pliers. Then we can get this line out. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so we got our old line out. We're going to do the same thing we did to the top line. We're going to drill these rivets out and go ahead and put these brackets in the same location on the new line. And I'll get that done, re-rivet them on, and we'll be good to put it back in the car. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so we got our bottom line in. Once you get your line in there, go ahead and tighten down your bracket bolts hand tight, and then once you get your line, the bottom line there, pushed in and put your bolt on, your 8 millimeter bolt back on, you're going to tighten it down to 26 foot-pounds, not a lot. So you're just going to tighten that down. Once you get that tightened down, we are good to go to start filling it up. While we're filling it up, We can go ahead and put our tie rods on. Your tie rods, once you get them tied down, you're going to go ahead and get you some light. Once you get them tightened down, you're going to tighten this nut down to 86 foot-pounds. So a good amount of torque on these. This nut, the locking nut, you're going to tighten this down to 45 foot-pounds. You're going to have to use a wrench to hold this end, and then use your 21 to tighten that down. Once you get your tie rods tightened down, everything is good to go. We got everything tied up, and you're good to go. So just slowly fill it up, and then go ahead and start the car. And if the level drops down, fill it up again until you're good to go. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's video on the Ford Freestyle with the rack and pinion change. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope this was helpful for you. I know I learned a lot in the process. I know there's not any videos about a lot of the Ford Freestyle stuff I do, so I try to make videos for you guys, and you know, try to produce content to where you guys can, it helps you out. That's my whole goal for this channel. So guys, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give this video a like. If you have not already, subscribe to Quad Boss Elite for more videos to come on the Ford's Freestyle, quads, truck, and all the fun stuff. We'll catch you later.